Hello there, I'm Big Alias. At this game, it's bloody lovely. It's lovely. This one, Creatures of Ava. This one came up out of nowhere on Game Pass. Just, suddenly. I was looking forward to, Mafia, which is actually on the day of recording coming out tomorrow. And suddenly Creatures of Ava came onto that. Now, admittedly, a few glances, after having a few glances at the game, I sort of thought, okay, this is not going to be for me. But I gave it a shot, and I still went through it regardless. And I've got to say, what a bloody lovely game. I just really like it. I like it a lot. But I will say, I want to get the negative out of the way. I want to get the negatives out of the way straight away. So the biggest issue with this game, I think, comes down to gameplay. Now, the gameplay is okay. It's not bad by any means. It's just, in a most derogatory way, very basic. It's very basic, bare bones gameplay. Doesn't do anything really much. It doesn't really do all that much. You start with this baseline beam rifle thing, and now you can upgrade it, and I think the idea is to begin with the baseline gameplay and upgrade it until it becomes, well, maybe not upgrade, but bolt things onto it until it becomes has more utility, and you can do more with it, and it's just more interesting. Unfortunately, firstly, that means that you're beginning with baseline gameplay that is even more baseline than the game, proper is. And secondly, that doesn't really work. Unfortunately, the gameplay here can be a little bit clunky. A couple of control issues here and there. I'm not a huge fan of the control scheme overall of the game. And there's just something intangible that I can't really place about the gameplay itself, about the sort of switching between powers itself, and it's so hard to explain because everything is so conceptual, but beam powers, that just is a little bit clunky, and I never really want to do it. So most of the time I end up just using the beam and holding X, which boosts the power of the beam. That's about it. And that is interesting. There's a dodge mechanic, and the dodge mechanic is okay. And, balancing holding down X or square, whatever the equivalent is, whilst using the beam, and then letting go of that and dodging. That is, in unto itself, is some gameplay. But there isn't all that much going on here. It reminds me a lot of the 2009 Ghostbusters game, which was excellent, except the Ghostbusters game had gadgets and gizmos and some more interesting stuff going on with the gameplay. But in reality, I just, despite all of the things you can add to the beam, there's just not much you can do with lifting an enemy up. And not really, you don't slam them down or anything like that. So mid-combat, you just levitate an enemy. It's stuff like that. It really isn't all that interesting in terms of gameplay. The second issue is these, and we'll get into some different gameplay sort of things that you can do here, but there's these poisonous things in the ground that when they hit you, they knock you, and you get poisoned for a bit, and your screen gets all fucked up. But they're all over the place. They're littered all over the place, and there's not really much of a marking to say, here it is. Technically there is, but it's very camouflaged in world. Those are bloody annoying, but that's it. Aside for that, I think the biggest plus for this game is, just look at it. Just look at the damn thing. It looks so cool. It looks great. I love the way this game looks. And in terms of creating a world that is interesting, immersive, and charming, this world is very charming and inviting. That can be very difficult. That can be a very difficult task, and I think they've nailed it here. I think the devs have actually nailed making a game that invites you and that I want to be in the world of. And this is definitely one of those games. I love the color palette. There are a couple of times where maybe it is just a little bit too intense in terms of color palette, but for the most part, no, it's great, and it's good to see different colors. The art style is very poppy and colorful, but also quite smooth, and it's just overall great art style. I talked about how I didn't like the art style for Valorant, despite that being cartoony a couple of weeks ago. This is an alternate universe where that's actually great, and it's cartoony, but the art style is actually fantastic. It's a very good looking game, and the monsters I like the way the monsters look. I think they all look quite unique, or creatures rather. And yeah, like there's varying sizes, varying abilities, varying mobility. It's they're pretty cool looking. I think overall, like the look and sort of audio visual experience of the game is my favorite part of this game. Now, admittedly, you know, stuff like the dialogue, you know, it's unfortunately there's not really all that much in terms of cutscenes, and the dialogue is just back and forths with characters who are wearing masks so they don't have to lip sync. You know, it's a trick I've seen 1,000 times, and it's fine. When the world looks as good as it is and as interesting as it is, I can, excuse me, goddamn, I can forgive it of that, you know, that's okay. And there's a cool thing that, you know, in terms of I guess in terms of gameplay. So I guess this does sort of push the gameplay up, where when you are sort of encountering these enemies, you can capture them, or the creatures, you can capture them. You're not just fighting them. And when you capture them, if you play the flute to them, and this is genuinely true, if you play the flute to them, then you capture them, and you can either lure them, you know, make them follow you, and you can lure them to these like capture points where you get to save them, essentially. You teleport them to somewhere, I don't know, or you can control them and use their unique powers in order to get around sort of puzzly sections and stuff like that. It's actually pretty cool. And like I said earlier, I was going to talk about those explosion things. One of the enemies you can use to destroy those things, those annoying poison explosion things, but that's actually terrible, because like, should I have to go over to one of these creatures, use the flute on it, and then make it go over? It's just a whole debacle. Just get rid of them. And I will say that the flute thing may not be for you, because it's, you know, on the one hand, it's a unique way of doing it, and I like that. And on the other hand, you have to go over and play this little like playing notes on the flute mini game, and you have to mimic the notes that the creature plays, and it can be a bit fiddly and a bit too much, a little bit too much. It can take too long to tame these creatures, and it has some lock-on issues where sometimes you'll lock onto one enemy and then fail the little mini game. You can keep trying and trying, but sometimes you'll like let go of the lock-on, and then you try again, and it's just locked onto a different creature, and you cannot get away from that lock-on, and then you're suddenly having to, you know, capture the other creature rather than the one you're going for. Now, I know I've talked about a lot of issues with this game, but, you know, overall, I still love it. I still think it's so charming and so fun to play, and such a fun world to be in, and it feels quite unique too, and I really like that. You know, it's an open world game, the world's small, a lot of it can be quite linear. Yeah, there's puzzle solving, and it's light puzzle solving, but I don't know, man, like everything about this game, it's so subjective. This is a very subjective review for me, because everything about this game I just kind of like, and I had a damn good time playing this game, and I really do hope it does well, so that we can get some sort of kind of sequel and expand on it and work on some of the issues that I spoke about, because what we have here is, you know, slightly flawed and not exactly a huge game, but still damn fun. So let's put a score on it. And I know, but it's a good score, and it's a good game. I'll see everyone later.
The PlayStation is only $149, and you can also get leading titles.